What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another of our weekday lives on Wednesdays. I'm super stoked that you guys are here. We're going to wait maybe like 60 seconds before we jump right in. Um, for those of you that are new here, we're talking today about how your brand messaging can affect your business, your brand, your customers, and we're going to be building a brand messaging framework to show you exactly how you can be doing this as well. First things first, my name is Bart. If you're new around here, I run a marketing agency in Toronto called Creative Partner. And this is something we do every single month where we, at least for 2022, where we talk about a topic at depth for 30 minutes during your lunch break. And we hope that this is something that can going to help you find the right way to connect with your audience, to help you with your marketing strategy, and to make sure that you're actually feeling confident in your product and your services and how you're actually leveraging that. I'm going to just put in the chat here, if you're new, tell us where you're from and to say hi. Okay, and that's probably it. We'll check back at the chat to see if anything comes back a little bit later, but throw some questions in there as we talk about this. And we're going to jump right into it. Like I said, we only have 30 minutes and we try to keep these as action packed and as practical as possible for you and your company, your brand, whatever you're working on. So, the question I have here is this you? Are you a business owner or an art director of a brand and you always feel like you have to recreate the wheel? Is it hard for you or your marketing team to craft the why your customers should care about your latest product launch or your latest campaign? This is what we're talking about today. We're talking about brand messaging and how it affects your business, your brand, and your customers. It's not enough to know who you are, what you do, and why you're different. You need a way to talk about your product or service in a compelling way that's repeated over and over. There's this thing with like vision and mission, which I would also add brand messaging. It's like a bucket that has a leak in the bottom. It is always leaking. And so you always have to keep replenishing it and talking over again with your team members and bringing it up when you're having your quarterly or annual retreats or whatever it is. You need to tell a cohesive story, especially if you have different contributors or creators working in and on your brand. Okay, it starts with brand messaging. Most brands don't have a solid brand messaging framework. Today you're going to have that chance. Let's dive right in. So like we mentioned before, brand messaging is super important to the application of your brand and your brand work. It's one thing to design something, let's say a logo, or maybe to have some ideas as to what niche you're going to be in. It's a completely different thing when you're talking about how we're going to talk about this so many times in so many ways with so many different people being involved. Years feels like a grip, which is like a lighting, person that helps, set up the lights. And the hardest thing I saw as like a creative was a director sharing a vision with like 300 people on set. Um, and that is such a unique and collaborative trust that needs to happen from one to another. And if you don't have that, you can find your sales team or your marketing team or your asset creation or creative fulfillment or whatever you're in, differentiating what they think is most important or what's the best way that is. So why brand messaging matters is because your content is telling a story whether you realize it or you don't. So to have the most impact, you need to tell your story consistently across all your touch points in every piece of your content. If you were to ask five people on your team to describe your brand, you might hear five different answers. You might hear five different people sharing five different things of what they think your brand is and why this attribute is most important or why this aspect or characteristic is most important. So, without a collective understanding of your brand, your content is likely disjointed. It's likely fragmented, even. This is why messaging matters. By clearly articulating who you are, what you do, how you do it differently, or you know, is in a clear and simple way and memorable language, you make it easier for your team to talk about your brand consistently. When you think about certain brands, you might think of how easy it is to remember what they stand for and how easy it is to remember some catchphrases or taglines. We're going to talk about that just slightly in a little bit. We're talking about taglines. But this is what I mean by memorable, likable. Instead of having disjointed, not wrong, but not right answers to who are you, what do you stand for, why should I care, now you can have a cohesive message that actually helps bring people in all closer together. Whether you're creating a website, homepage, or a sales brochure, a product packaging, with this foundation, you can ensure that every piece of communication is aligned, and therefore it can be understood as effective. It's not enough to just create something that is good or that is completed, rather it needs to be effective. It needs to be like, okay, this was something we tracked it. We were able to see how it performed. We understood how it played within our customer journey or customer personas. That's what I mean by when I say it was aligned and therefore effective. Okay, so let's break this down. And we're going to talk about how to build a brand messaging architecture. It's not as complicated or it's not as hard as what some people might think, but it does take some work. This framework is an architecture that's very simple, but it needs to be elevated um, to every conversation. Okay, this is what I mean, where it's like you really need all the key decision makers or all people who are involved in every touch point. It needs to be in every conversation and planning and execution of your content, your sales pitches, and whatever else your business is doing. It's all built on your tagline, which is where you get your value proposition, and lastly, your brand messaging pillars. Don't worry, I'm going to show this to you guys in just a second here, because this framework is built intentionally from the tagline, which is the big idea. You have a brand, and the brand is, it's good, it's nice, but then your tagline allows you an opportunity to kind of share a little bit more, a little bit more understanding. And you can see this here. I'll share the screen. The framework starts at the very top. That tagline is maybe just a sentence, maybe it's just a few words, and then underneath that you have your value proposition, which is now more of like a full sentence or a paragraph that can explain exactly what you're meaning. And then we have the brand pillars and the supporting points for each of those brand pillars. So like I said, the tagline being the big idea, the value proposition is what you do, and your brand messaging is how you're going to do it. So every element reinforces the other cohesively and consistently. Additionally, no matter where people are in the buyer's journey, your brand messaging always provides an entry point for your brand and your story. Okay, I hope this makes sense. When we're talking about your brand messaging for your customer journey and for where every touch point is within that funnel, um, if we have a set of message points that we're talking about, if we have a set of, the supporting ideas, now I know we can classify these supporting ideas or brand pillars, messaging pillars, are going to be associated to top of funnel, middle funnel, maybe decision section of the funnel. And now you can start to understand how you can create all your content, all your campaigns, all your launches within the context of how exactly is which exactly content pillar are we going or messaging pillar are we going to use for this. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So let's keep the party going here. So every touch point inside of your uh, uh, customer journey, you want to make sure that it's ready. It's ready with messaging that is appropriate and effective for the task that it's going to be used for, and that's what we really want. And I know this doesn't give you a full picture, but we'll talk quickly about what that really looks like for you and how you can build it yourself. Okay, the first thing we have to talk about when we're building a framework is your brand heart. We've done lots of videos on branding on our YouTube page, so you're already here. Good job. You'll be able to see what that looks like. It's your core principles. It's who you are. It's what you believe in. In marketing, we call that your purpose, your vision, and your values. You need to take some time to work through those things and make sure that you're you're in a place where you understand and everyone understands what those four things look like and what that reality means for your business. We offer this in our digital roadmap series. It's a paid service, and we help you understand how do you work through these items and how do you get a brand heart that is like, okay, this is the meaning or the real sentimentalness of our brand that's going to reach out and connect with other people. The next thing we got to talk about is your brand positioning. Okay, so your brand positioning is like what niche you serve. Okay, how are you different from your competitors? This is going to help determine the level or articulation needed for your messaging. It requires market research and competitor analysis. These are things that people oftentimes skip over but don't actually take the time to um, leverage, and they don't see the full picture and how this can really really help. And we do this in a way that I'm going to share this here. We do this in a way that helps people understand, like, distilling your ideas. So to help determine the level of articulation needed for your messaging, market research, competitor analysis. Once you have your market research and your competitor analysis, you can now distill your position into a one sentence description like this. So, our offering, okay, is the only category that what the benefit is. So, what is your offering? What is the thing, your product or service? In what category? Okay, and then what is that's going to that the end user is going to be able to use. This is how you start to break down your brand positioning after you have your brand heart. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is you need to craft your value proposition. Okay, so brand positioning, value proposition. Your value proposition explains the functional and the emotional benefits of your product and your service. So it's not good enough to just have your brand position to say, hey, we serve X, we serve people who love going to the gym, we serve the athletic department in a niche, but okay, let's break it down even a little bit more. What are you and that's going to allow me to feel a pain point that I'm going to get value from working with you or from buying your product. Think of it this way: your value proposition is how you solve a specific problem. This is what you want to make sure that you're doing. Okay, let's talk about how we craft one of these. We help X do Y doing Z. Okay, who are you helping? What do they do, or what problem are they facing? And we do it. And what's your signature thing that is helping them do it? So we do X, do Y by doing Z or Z if you're in Canada. This is often, your first blurb on your website. We see this a lot. People put their value prop right up front. When you go to a website, you'll see this is exactly what our value proposition is. Um, it's very helpful to understand what that looks like for you and what that means for you. So next, we're going to be building or distilling your tagline. Now that you've done your brand heart, your brand positioning, and your value proposition, we're going to talk about your tagline. And this takes a little bit of work. And I know this is a lot of information. We're going pretty fast. And I know we only have 15 minutes left. But let's talk about Let's talk about the tagline. Coming up with a great tagline is like, it's not like, the movies, or not like TV. There's no like Don Draper from like Mad Men who's gonna give you the perfect line. It's usually a long slog. It's really a lot of work, and there's no magic. It's gonna be done and achieved through brainstorming sessions and different iterations and practice. And the reason why it takes a long time is because you want to maybe start broad and work your way narrow, and you want to craft something that really will stand the test of time. And if sometimes it feels frustrating when you have to do these very specific, minute, but also detailed items for your own marketing. It can be frustrating, but it's definitely necessary to find the right tagline. And you want to remember that your tagline is, you want it to be memorable, you want it to be likable, and you want it to relate to your brand. The best way I can tell you to develop your tagline is to, number one, write a paragraph first, okay, that explains who you are and what you do. Don't be self-conscious. This can be a brain dump, okay, like no bad ideas type of thing. If you're working collectively, everyone write their own and start to mix and match different sentences together to make maybe 4 or 5 sentences that work really well. Number two, condense that paragraph into one line. Okay, maybe 2 lines, but the point is to refine it to the core of what you're really trying to say. And then number three, you want to lastly remind yourself that likability matters. You need to inject emotions, an emotional hook, that is directly related to the brand's benefit. Okay. And then obviously you need to polish and review with team. Go through that revision process, send it to a few other people, let them know what they think. But you want to make sure that your brand, um what's it called, your tagline, sorry, excuse me, is something that's actually going to help you the test of time and clarify, your name, clarify your brand. Because sometimes they see a logo attached to an image with the name of your company across, but your tagline is the first description that they're really going to see and understand. Okay, so we fleshed out a tagline, and now we have to talk about your brand messaging pillars. These messaging pillars are a crucial element to your brand messaging, and particularly used for tools, for content creators. Okay, this is how uh, hard it is or complicated it is for content creators often. We usually have an idea. The idea comes because of inspiration, because of a problem we faced or something in real life. And what ends up happening is you end up having a great idea, but it's siloed. It doesn't work within the context of what we are doing collectively as a company. It may be related on the surface, but then what it ends up doing is bringing more spider webs that go out into the adjacent fields. And it's better to have the people closest to the top, whether it's your creative or your art director, your marketing VP, communications director, whatever it is, be able to rein in a lot of these quote unquote ideas that are not bad. And let's always start with, what message are we really looking to help elevate? What message do we need at this point in our marketing or content calendar? And you can now say, okay, we need a message like this, or we need to talk about this because we have a lot of people who are in our current consideration phase of our customer journey. And so let's go back and let's start looking at, what it looks like for picking the right brand messaging to elevate or to, stoke up this niche of, or this segment rather, of customers. So let's talk about it. Okay, um, when you're fleshing out your brand pillars, there's three major themes, benefits, and selling points that makes your brand unique. Okay, don't pick 7 brand pillars. Pick like three, maybe four. What are the major themes? What are the basic, or the basic functionality, or benefits of it? And what is the selling point that maybe your sales team or your marketing team have been working on? What's the main one that you're solving? Again, if you don't solve a problem, you're not gonna actually get somebody to care. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to narrate someone who cares about um, your brand, your service, your product. So there's a lot more here in terms of, making sure that you're not just writing anything down, but you're really, again, using that competitor analysis, market research, seeing how that works with your sales team, what has been hitting with your A/B testing if you're doing email marketing, or with your sales team, and now say, okay, these are the real selling points of the brand, because you know we see the evidence of this, and now here are the benefits that we know this is. We have testimonials to back up, and here are the major themes or sub niches that people in this industry talk about. Notice how everything that I'm saying here in the messaging port backed by data. It's not good enough as marketers to go with what's trending, what sounds good, what looks good, or even what feels good. Our decisions have to be made on the data that we have. And if you don't have data, then you need to, earmark it to say, once we have enough information, now we need to reflect on what that looks like for our data. So you start to build out the pillars one by one, and each one of those message are the boxes that were I showed you before, that are stacked on top of each other. So here's how to use it. Okay. Once you now have a brand message, okay, we have our tagline, we have our the, the value proposition, we have the content messaging pillars. Once you have this, how do you use once you have this, this beautiful brand messaging, how do you use it? First things first, you need to include it into your brand guidelines. Introduce the messaging and make sure everyone is on the same page. You don't have them follow our guide to create a brand guideline. You can find it at resources.creativepartner.ca. Number two, use it in brainstorming ideas. Okay, this is what I was talking about before. At any time you create a piece of content, you should be able to justify how it supports your brand story. We find it especially helpful to brainstorm around specific messaging pillars, as a single pillar can easily become an entire branch of content. And again, the more you do this, the better you get at extracting different stories within that story of the brand message. What that means is, you've come this far. Let's say you've done this exercise over the course of a day or two with your team, and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning don't do all the setup and not the follow through. You want to make sure that when you're now the reason why we've done this is so that your content performs better. You want to make sure that when you're planning this content, that it's actually going to support your overall story. The whole goal here is to create a genuine and authentic connection with your audience. So let's make sure that the story that they're attaching to, the story that they're connecting with, is an authentic story that will help them move through your sales funnel, through your marketing funnel, that they will then understand by the time they reach the end, oh, this is how I want it to feel. And it makes perfect sense now for me to leverage my dollar, or to make a connection, or to download, or whatever it is. Um, you want to make sure that you're staying as close to the story as possible. Lastly, and I know we've run out of time here, is to clarify your messaging for each stage of your buyer journey. Each stage of that journey, your consideration, your awareness, your purchase or decision phase, you want to make your messaging effective, like we talked about earlier. You need to say the right things at the right time. And this is where you might want to have this documented inside your guidelines, inside of some type of procedures and policies, or SOP, that's going to help the people that are making some of these decisions in campaigns or product launches, or even in sales processing. That you want to make sure that the right message is talking to them, so that they feel a cohesiveness across the board. I hope this has been really helpful, guys. This is one of the few things that happens on a regular basis where we consult with a client and they have sales and they have a business, they have a logo, they have branding, they understand, but they don't necessarily have the story or the connection that's going to make somebody care to follow, care to subscribe, care to purchase, care to share, to be an ambassador. That's what we're really looking for, because the value of those types of customers, the value of those types of people inside of your network is invaluable, because now they've caught the vision and they understand the story behind it, the why behind it, and you don't have to rebuild relationships from zero every single time. Okay, I can't help but say it again. Please check out resources.creativepartner.ca. That's where you're going to find a lot of our free guides and resources, brainstorming tools, our brand guide, and many, many more. And you can watch all of the old webinars from 2022 as well. That's it from me. Peace out, guys. Bye.